The night my parents handed my sister a brand new house for her graduation, the dining room exploded with applause. Phones went up. Glasses clinked. My mother pressed a hand to her chest like she'd just witnessed a miracle. My father stood taller than usual, soaking it all in. My sister Rachel covered her mouth in fake surprise, though her eyes were already shining. Then my dad turned toward me, smiling wide. "And for you, Anna," he said, holding up a thin envelope, "a gym membership. You're too fat. Time to reduce some weight." Laughter followed. Loud. Careless. Mocking. Someone actually snorted. I felt heat rush to my face, my chest tightening as if the air had been pulled out of the room. I remember staring at the envelope in his hand, hearing my mother chuckle and add, "We're just looking out for your health." My aunt nodded approvingly. My cousin whispered something and laughed again. I wanted the floor to open. I wanted to disappear. I'd always known I was heavier than my sister, softer around the edges, but this wasn't concern. This was spectacle. This was them turning my body into a punchline. I stood up slowly, my legs shaking, and without saying a word, I grabbed my coat and walked out. No speech. No tears. Just silence. At the time, I believed humiliation was the worst thing they could do to me. I hadn't yet seen how deep they were willing to go. My name is Anna. I'm 32 years old, and I live alone in Columbus, Ohio. I work an office job that's steady and predictable, the kind that keeps the lights on and my life calm. I like routine. I like knowing where my money goes. I like quiet evenings and clean counters. I built my life that way deliberately, because chaos was something I grew up with. From the outside, my family looks ideal. Big smiles in framed photos. Loud holiday dinners. People say we're close. What they don't see is the unspoken ranking system that ruled our house. Rachel, my older sister, was always first. First choice. First priority. If she struggled, my parents rushed in. If she failed, they softened the landing. When she totaled her car at 21, they bought her another. When she dropped out of one program and switched to another, they covered the cost without complaint. She was ambition. Potential. Someone worth investing in. I was the dependable one. The practical one. The one who didn't need saving. When I needed help, the answer was always the same. You'll figure it out. And I did. I figured out loans, second-hand furniture, and how to make myself small. That graduation dinner stripped away any doubt. The house they gifted Rachel sat outside Cleveland, a neat little place worth more than $100,000. My parents announced the price proudly, like they'd won something. Rachel hugged them, glowing, already acting like the owner. When my turn came, all eyes shifted to me, curious, amused. The envelope felt light in my hands, like an afterthought. My father joked again about motivation. Someone muttered. Finally. I stared down at my plate, my appetite gone, my body suddenly feeling too big for the chair. When Rachel leaned over and whispered, "You'll thank them when you slim down," something inside me hardened. I didn't confront anyone that night. I didn't defend myself. I walked out into the cold, my cheeks burning, and sat in my car until my hands stopped shaking. I replayed the laughter over and over, each sound sinking deeper than the last. That night, I realized staying meant agreeing with them. It meant accepting that my worth could be measured, mocked, and announced publicly. Within a week, I found my apartment. Small. Quiet. Mine. I moved without asking for help. I didn't tell my parents the address. I didn't explain myself. I just left. The first few days alone felt strange, like something was missing. Then the silence started to feel like relief. Rachel called first, her voice light and teasing. "So, how's single girl life treating you?" I didn't answer. She texted a photo of her new living room instead. Hardwood floors. Tall windows. Still can't believe it's mine, the caption read. I muted the conversation. My parents followed. My mother left voicemails asking if I was done sulking. My father texted once, telling me to call when I cooled off. None of it sounded like concern. It sounded like annoyance that I wasn't playing my role. I threw myself into routine. I woke up early. I cooked instead of ordering out. I joined a gym, not the one they'd given me, but one I chose myself. At first, every mirror felt like an accusation. Every step felt heavy. But slowly, something shifted. I wasn't doing this for them. I was doing it because that night had shown me how little control I'd had over my own narrative. With each week, I felt stronger. More focused. My body changed, yes, but so did my confidence. I slept better. I walked taller. I stopped apologizing for taking up space. 3 months passed. During that time, opportunities opened up. A project at work I'd been overlooked for landed on my desk. My manager noticed my consistency, my drive. Conversations about advancement started happening. Meanwhile, through family whispers, I heard cracks forming in Rachel's perfect life. She'd been traveling, gambling, spending recklessly. The house became a backdrop for parties and bad decisions. Then, late one night, my phone rang. Rachel's name lit up the screen. She was crying, panicked, her voice breaking apart as she admitted she'd lost the house in Ohio. Bad bets. Worse choices. Everything gone. The calls from my parents started the next morning. Urgent. Soft. They talked about family sticking together. About not holding grudges. They asked if I could help financially, just temporarily. I listened quietly, feeling the final pieces fall into place. 3 months earlier, I was too fat to celebrate. Now I was needed. I didn't answer right away. I didn't promise anything. I stared at my reflection instead, slimmer, steadier, unrecognizable from the woman they'd laughed at. And I understood then that what they'd started that night wasn't over. It was only beginning. The letter arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning, slipped under my apartment door like harmless mail. Plain envelope. My name typed neatly, professionally, as if nothing inside could hurt me. I opened it at the kitchen counter, protein shake untouched beside me. The numbers didn't register at first. Outstanding balance. Past due notices. A warning about legal action. The amount made my stomach tighten. Enough to undo everything I'd worked for. I read it again, slower, waiting for logic to appear. I hadn't taken out loans. I paid my bills early. I lived carefully. Then I saw the address tied to the account. My parents' house. My hands started shaking. I spent the rest of the day making calls, asking calm questions, taking notes. By evening, the truth was undeniable. Someone had used my identity to open a loan. The money had gone straight to covering Rachel's collapse. Rent arrears. Utility bills. Debts no one wanted to explain. They hadn't asked me. They hadn't warned me. They had decided my future was acceptable collateral. I drove to my parents' house that night without calling. The porch light glowed the same way it always had, warm and familiar, and yet I felt like a stranger walking up those steps. My mother opened the door and froze. "Anna," she said quickly, forcing a smile, "you should have called." I walked past her into the living room. My father sat stiffly on the couch. Rachel stood by the window, arms crossed, thinner now, brittle in a way I hadn't seen before. I placed the letter on the table. "Explain." My mother glanced at it and looked away. "We were going to tell you." My father sighed like I was being difficult. Things spiraled. We needed time. I kept my voice steady. You used my name. My credit. Rachel scoffed. You're being dramatic. It's temporary. I looked at her calmly. You don't get to decide what temporary means for my life. My mother stepped between us. You know how desperate she was. What were we supposed to do? I laughed once, sharp and humorless. So you chose to risk me instead. My father's voice hardened. We raised you. Don't you think you owe us something? The words landed cleanly, clearly. The truth I'd always known, finally spoken out loud. No, I said. I don't. The room went silent. I explained the consequences carefully. Renting. Employment. Stability. This wasn't family conflict. It was fraud. My mother cried, real tears now. We didn't think you'd find out so fast. Rachel rolled her eyes. You always make everything about you. I told them exactly what would happen next. They would close the account immediately. They would fix the damage. If I heard from the lender again, I would involve the authorities. I wasn't threatening them. I was informing them. My father stood abruptly. You wouldn't. I met his eyes. I would. Rachel exploded, accusing me of selfishness, reminding me I'd lost weight, found confidence, opportunities. You're doing fine, she said. You could help me. I saw it clearly then. Fear where entitlement used to live. I already helped you, I said quietly. By stepping aside. I walked out without waiting for a response. For 2 days, my phone didn't stop buzzing. Messages dripping with guilt. Accusations masked as concern. I didn't answer any of them. On the 3rd day, confirmation arrived. The loan was closed. Paid. I didn't ask how. I locked my credit, changed every password, drew boundaries so sharp they couldn't pretend not to see them. That night, my uncle called. They're furious, he said. But they're scared. They know they crossed a line. And Rachel? I asked. He paused. For the first time, she's stuck. The humiliation of that graduation dinner, being laughed at, mocked for my body, my weight, my worth, had been searing. I remembered how small I felt, how heavy my skin seemed, how impossible it felt to hold my head high. That memory stayed with me, but it didn't crush me for long. Slowly, deliberately, I took control. I changed my routines. I joined a gym I chose myself, not the one my parents forced on me. I learned what my body could do, not how it looked. I cleaned up my diet, not to satisfy anyone else, but to see what strength felt like. With each week, each workout, each healthy meal, my reflection began to shift. Not only my body but my posture, my energy, my presence. I became leaner, yes, but more importantly, I became powerful in ways my parents had never anticipated. And as I transformed, my career transformed too. At first, the small promotion was just acknowledgement of my consistency. But doors started opening. Projects, leadership roles, opportunities that had been invisible before. I was no longer just reliable. I was noticeable. My confidence radiated through my work, my interactions, and my very walk. The laughter at graduation that had once stung like acid became fuel. I wasn't angry anymore. I was strategic, growing, elevating. Every achievement reminded me of what I could do when I wasn't trapped in their judgment. Meanwhile, Rachel's perfect life began crumbling. The house, that gleaming prize they had gifted her in Ohio, had become a burden she wasn't equipped to handle. Parties, careless spending, late bills, and reckless choices spiraled into disaster. And then came the call. Rachel panicked, admitting she had lost the house. The rush of fear in her voice reminded me of the helplessness I had once felt, but she hadn't learned the lessons I had. My parents were desperate again, But now, instead of turning to me as a pawn, I was in the position to observe, to decide, to act if I wished. I made no moves immediately. I stayed quiet. Rachel's life collapsed quietly, but I was growing louder in my own world. I earned bigger projects at work, my name gaining weight in the right circles, and each day, I felt lighter, sharper, freer. I watched, from the edges, as Rachel's panic became more visible. My parents' calls became less frequent, softer, desperate. They were no longer in control. I had quietly reclaimed my space, my energy, my life. The moment of power shifted fully when Rachel came to my door, exhausted, broken, begging. "I just need to talk," she said. I didn't move. "They won't help me anymore," she said, finally seeing what I had known all along. "Mom and Dad said I have to figure it out." I almost felt pity for her, but it was fleeting. "I can't keep working 2 jobs," she admitted. "I can't live like this." I held the doorframe. "You should have thought about that before," she snapped, accusing me of thinking I was better. "No," I said evenly. "I just learned faster." She left without another word, and for the first time, I realized my revenge wasn't dramatic. It was complete. No loans. No theft. No confrontations needed. My parents had tried to reduce me to my body, my resources, my submission. I refused. I rebuilt, strengthened, advanced. Rachel, the golden child, was stripped of the house, the safety net, the undeserved applause. My parents' interference no longer worked. They had no leverage. I had become untouchable, but not through vengeance alone. Through patience, self-mastery, and transformation. Months passed. I moved into a brighter apartment, invested in my professional growth, continued my health journey. Not for them, not for approval, but because I could finally live for myself. Plants thrived on my windowsill, proof of life cultivated through care. Rachel disappeared from my life, replaced in my thoughts by focus, clarity, and opportunity. My parents tried once to reach me, small, careful messages. I ignored them. Silence felt healthier than any forced reconciliation could ever be. Walking away hadn't ruined my family, as they had threatened. It had saved me. I had transformed the humiliation, the judgment, the cruelty, into the foundation of a new life. I wasn't angry. I wasn't seeking apology. I wasn't seeking revenge in the typical sense. I had reclaimed everything they tried to steal from me: confidence, respect, independence, and freedom. And when my sister lost the house, it was the final punctuation mark on a narrative I had rewritten for myself. I had been mocked for my weight, treated like a failure, humiliated in front of everyone I knew. But those moments had been the catalyst, the fire that forced me out of their house, into my life, and into a version of myself that no one could diminish. I was Anna. I was free. I was unstoppable. And that's the story of how a gym membership, a mockery, and a house in Ohio became the foundation of my revenge. Not through destruction, but through transformation, discipline, and empowerment. Moral lessons. Anna's journey teaches us that humiliation and cruelty, even from those we trust most, can become powerful catalysts for growth when we refuse to let them define us. Life will sometimes put people in positions to belittle or undermine us, but the real strength lies in how we respond, through patience, discipline, and self-respect. Protect your boundaries, invest in yourself, and channel pain into positive transformation rather than revenge alone. True empowerment comes not from punishing others, but from reclaiming your confidence, your goals, and your life. No one has the right to diminish your worth, and the courage to walk away from toxic control can lead to opportunities, growth, and freedom that you never imagined possible. If this story touched you, please don't forget to leave a like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our stories. Thanks for watching.